Hello and welcome to the Forgeborn Finishing School. I'm Casey Kidd and I'll be analyzing Forgeborn battles to help take your game to the next level. I hope you enjoyed some of the previous lessons, including the aggressive series, but we are going to slow down our playstyle and get back to the basics. One of the many beautiful traits of this game is the ability to just jump in and play without digging deeply into the mechanics of card interactions. But if you take a moment to delve into those interactions and their timings, you can wield them like a weapon on the battlefield and gain a strong advantage. In a previous video, I asked for recommendations on standalone videos, and in the comments section, Anque suggested Talisan as a great topic. I couldn't agree more. Anque has some serious Talisan insight as well, so I've invited him to take part in the show as a guest instructor. Big thanks to Anque, not just for lending his voice, he put a lot of work into developing this lesson. You can find more content from Anque on his YouTube channel, Anque Gaming. Now, Solforge Fusion has a very different perspective on how to resolve multiple triggers compared to most TCGs. Solforge Fusion moves away from the stack concept in favor of batches. Think of batches as mini stacks that have breaks to define a clear-cut ending of triggers before others are allowed to continue. Before we can get too deep into the intricacies of the batch system, it is important to understand the difference between how spells and creature abilities are handled in Solforge Fusion. Anque, if you wouldn't mind breaking those differences down.
Absolutely. When you play a spell, you resolve each line of text in order as soon as the card is played. This can be a simple effect, or a more complex one. A spell may trigger other events as a result of cards on the table, but these triggered abilities cannot resolve until the spell itself has fully completed. Contrast this with playing a creature. Many creatures in Solforge Fusion have deploy abilities. These abilities trigger after the card has been played into a lane and any creature that it replaced has been banished. Most of the time, this is just one simple effect, and it is easy enough to resolve it the same way you would resolve a spell. But what happens when multiple effects trigger at the same time? This is where the batch comes into play.
In Solforge Fusion, a batch is a group of abilities triggered during a single event. This event could be anything from playing a card, destroying creatures in combat, or gaining life. Even when only one ability is triggered by an event, a batch is created. When multiple abilities are added to a batch, the controller of each ability decides the order in which they resolve. Let's take a look at the Mystical Bartok. When you play the Mystical Bartok, you are creating a batch that includes an ability to give your next played creature +2 attack, +2 health, and a second ability that creates a Wisp minion. You may choose the order in which these resolve for different results. You can resolve the +2/+2 for your next played creature, and then resolve the Wisp, resulting in a 4/4 Wisp, or you can resolve the Wisp first, resulting in a 2/2 Wisp, and save the +2/+2 bonus for your next played creature.
As we noted before, when you play a spell, it resolves immediately. You must complete all actions instructed by the spell before any triggers can take place. Let's consider the interaction between Zimis and Infernal Ritual. Zimis is a zombie that will reanimate itself when it is destroyed. Infernal Ritual allows you to destroy one of your creatures to create zombie minions, then give all your zombies increased attack and aggressive. If you choose to destroy Zimis as part of playing Infernal Ritual, his reanimation trigger will be put into a new batch and must wait until the spell has fully resolved. This means that you must first resolve the increased attack and aggressive clause before Zimis is reanimated. He will not benefit from the Infernal Ritual as a result. We have discussed what happens when you have multiple triggers you must resolve from your own cards. But what happens when both you and your opponent have abilities that trigger from the same event? This is where the Forge comes into play. The player who has the Forge will resolve their abilities first, followed by the player who is off the Forge. Oftentimes, the order in which abilities are resolved is inconsequential and will result in the same end state regardless of whose abilities were resolved first. However, there are going to be instances where being the Forge player and getting to resolve your abilities first can be the difference between winning and losing.
In some instances, resolving one ability will cause a new ability to trigger. When this happens, a new batch is created. Similar to how spells work, new triggered abilities cannot interrupt what is in the current batch and must wait for the current batch to resolve before being addressed. Let's look at one of my favorite creatures, the Cutthroat Stitcher. The Cutthroat Stitcher is a forged creature that has two abilities. The first ability lets you replace one of your minions with a creature from your banish pile. The second ability lets you destroy one of your creatures to destroy an enemy creature of the same level. Because both of these abilities are added to the batch simultaneously when you play the Stitcher, you choose the order to resolve them. As a result, triggers can occur between the first and second ability resolving, for better or worse. Let's look at a couple of examples. Say we have a mindless zombie on the board and a Scourge Hydra in our banish pile, while our enemy has 2 level 1 creatures in play. We play a Cutthroat Stitcher, choosing to replace our minion with the Scourge Hydra first. When the Scourge Hydra is played, it introduces a new triggered ability. However, we have not yet finished resolving the batch containing the Stitcher's second ability, so we need to put the Hydra's ability into a new batch for later. We now resolve the Stitcher's second ability, destroying our newly played Scourge Hydra to destroy the enemy Ice Crusher. Now that we have finished resolving the batch created by the Stitcher, we can resolve the Scourge Hydra's ability. This will see that one of my creatures was destroyed this turn, and we are now able to destroy the War Tusk. Sometimes the way batches chain together don't work the way we want them to. Let's look at the previous example, but this time we have a Necrotic Moeba instead of the mindless zombie. We want to use the zombie minion that is created when our Necrotic Moeba is destroyed to bring back our Scourge Hydra. So we reverse the order of our Stitcher triggers, destroying our Moeba to destroy the enemy Ice Crusher. Now we run into a problem. We've destroyed the Moeba, but its ability is added to a new batch, waiting for the Stitcher's second ability to finish resolving. We resolve the Stitcher's next ability, but we have no minion to replace, so the Scourge Hydra remains in the banish pile. The zombie minion will come into play as we resolve the second batch. Too late to bring back the Hydra.
Now that we understand the fundamentals of how batching works in Solforge Fusion, let's look at some advanced examples. We'll be using another one of my favorite creatures, Talisan. Talisan at level 1 and 2 reads, Activate. The enemy player may play a card for free. Then you may play a card for free. Activating Talisan is a singular ability and must be resolved from start to finish before any other triggered abilities can resolve. However, the rules of how cards are played are still followed. What this means is that if you activate Talisan and the enemy player plays a spell, they will fully resolve that spell before you get to play a card. However, if they play a creature with a deploy ability, you get to play your card before any triggers can resolve. The following examples will show you how you can leverage this to your benefit. Say you have a Stampeding Worm in play when you activate Talisan. The opponent plays a Walker as their free play, clearly intending to take out your worm. The deploy ability goes into a new batch and is waiting for Talisan to finish resolving. You could choose a creature as your free play, but you know the batch system works in your favor here. Instead, you play Druid's Chant, immediately buffing your Stampeding Worm and safely moving it out of the danger zone. To conclude, I want to cover some of the basic do's and don'ts of playing Talisan. There are always exceptions to these basic Talisan tenets, but when in doubt, fall back on these. First, when possible, activate Talisan before taking an action to play a card. One of Talisan's greatest strengths lies in the ability to play 2 consecutive cards without your opponent being able to respond in between. Second, it's okay to play level 1 or level 2 Talisan and not activate, especially when on Forge. It has a decent stat line and forces your opponent to take into account your potential to activate Talisan with every decision they make going forward. Lastly, Talisan is more risk and less value if you are significantly ahead on board. Review your opponent's deck list before activating Talisan unless you are 100% confident of the cards in their deck and the risks they pose to your board state.
Anque, this has been phenomenal having you on to share your experience and insight. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us on the channel and helping to develop a really strong lesson to help the community.
It's been a pleasure and thanks for having me. I hope this lesson has given our students some new tools for their arsenal.
Thanks for attending this lesson with Forgeborn Finishing School. If you liked this video, please subscribe, comment, and consider donating to our Patreon account. I'm Casey Kidd, and I look forward to our next lesson.